All right, we are live once again. Thank you, everyone that is tuning in. This is The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. I am your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Happy New Year. Glad to be back with new episodes for 2022. I hope everyone has enjoyed their holidays. Everyone's staying safe. Have a safe New Year and everything else. So again, Happy New Year to everyone out there. We're live here on StreamYard. We're live on Roku, BS3 TV app. So make sure you download that app, Roku, BS3 TV. Let me say it again. We on Roku. That's a big jump. So, and I have Mr. BS3 himself on the show today, the creator of BS3 Radio. So, but we're live on Roku, BS3 TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Play. I mean, we're whatever you can get podcasts, we're there. So again, thank you to everyone that's tuning in. You can follow me at Get the Real Deal on Twitter, also Instagram, CJ Harden 79, Facebook, facebook.com/ Facebook, so many of them. Facebook.com/Get the Real Deal. Again, I also at Get the Real Deal on Twitter. There's so many of them. So just type in The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. You can find it all over. So again, we are live here. I got a great panel of guests. Some of my brothers in the podcast realm as well. We're talking about podcasting 101, the future and the state of podcasting, live stream. I'm just so excited to have these guys on the show. They know I'm big fans of all their shows. So without further ado, let's get into these intros. Again, first and foremost, I have BS3 himself, Ben Sudderth, the creator and founder and owner of BS3 Network. Thank you for coming on the show, Ben. Thank you again.
Yeah, I mean, no problem. Glad to be on. I had the makeup from your first show on Roku. I had I had COVID. I came on the show, and then my wife was like, "Hey, we got to go because we got to get these antibodies and all that." But I'm better, a lot better now, and I definitely wanted to come on today.
Definitely. I'm glad to get you on. Glad you're back healthy and all that too. Because like I said, COVID is still running rampant like crazy. Yeah. So but glad you and the family are healthy and safe and all that too. But again, thank you for coming on. And then also Ben had, like I say, he runs the network itself, but he also has his own show too, Late Night with BS3. So check that out Saturday evenings, 10 p.m. Eastern time. So definitely check that out. I know he's going to have some new episodes coming up as well. Next up on this panel, I have my Real Deal bro, Mr. Damian Adams, the host and creator of The Real Deal with Damian Adams. Been on his show multiple times, been on my show multiple times. So again, thank you, Damian, for coming on once again.
Oh, no problem at all, man. I'm a big fan of yours, BS3's, Walter's. And, whenever I can collaborate with great podcasters, I'm always willing to do it. So thank you for having me on.
No doubt. Thank you again for coming on to the show. You can check Damian's show on all podcast platforms as well. He does a little bit of everything too, from boxing to basketball to NFL. Also, he's part of the 3rd and 3 podcast, which is I love that show as well. So with Jason Fierman and Nikki Nick herself. So again, check that out as well. And last but not least, I have my man, Walter Strong. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about this whole thing of podcasting and all that too. He's a coach, creator, content creator, YouTube streamer, has his own show, The Huddle, on YouTube as well. So again, Walter Strong, thank you for coming on as well.
Hey, I'm honored to be a part of this distinguished guest of Podcast Masters. My name is Walter Strong III. I have a YouTube channel, which is after my name, Walter Strong III, where we help you broaden your reach, your impact, and income through online video. Every Saturday morning, we also have The Huddle with Walter Strong, where we bring on other YouTube content creators to help you to grow your channel, get more views, more subscribers, and to do what you need to do to crush your goals in 2022 on YouTube.
No doubt. Again, another great content creator as well. He's had so many guests, like you said, from YouTubers, from live streamers to all that. He's coaching these guys, coaching a lot of these guys too, to just to build your brand. And we're going to talk about a little bit about that as well. So again, I have this great panel. I'm going to, like I said, I'm just going to moderate. I'm going to sit back and let these guys just talk about their shows and all that. So again, subscribe to all their shows. like their pages, share their pages, and all that, because we're here for the ride. So let's get this party started. So let's talk about you guys' shows. Ben, we'll start with you first. Talk about your show, the network, how you got started, and all those things. We'll start from the beginning.
Yeah. So interesting story. I really didn't have a passion to get into podcasting. I was invited on a show. I kind of love telling the story just because, that if he didn't invite me on his show, I would have never, gotten started. But Eric DeWalt, he had a show, I think it was called Cane and Ice at that time, or I'm not sure what it was called, but he invited me on the show to talk North Carolina football. It was very rare North Carolina football fans. So he invited me on the show. It went great. And from there on, I kind of started doing my own podcast. This was probably 2015, the late end of 2015. And I started doing it and loved it. And after doing it for a couple years, being on a couple different networks, I figured maybe start my own. Shout out to my wife. She was the one that kind of put that bug in my ear. So that's kind of how the network aspect got started. And we'll be 3 years in to the network in August. But it's been a great ride. Also getting to meet people along the way. I haven't actually met any of you guys in person, at least not yet. But that's the great thing about podcasting is you build relationships with people all over the world, literally, by having like mind and doing the same thing.
Definitely. And I remember when we started, and I'm on part of the BS3 Network for the last couple of years, and we were just podcasting together, and we kind of was just, you were on my show, I was on your show, you invited me, and then I took that year off too, and you were like, let's just build together. So glad that you're part of this whole this whole podcasting, live streaming game realm, whatever you want to call it, this platform that we have, that we can just share stories kind of like that. So I say it's a very interesting story how you got started and everything. They said you didn't want to even do it, so now you're here many years later.
Now I'm addicted.
Addicted to building a network. So I mean, it's dope. That's how that worked out. Damian, tell us how you got started, and with your show and successful show and all that. Like I said, you're on all podcast platforms as well.
Yeah, so with me, I was at work one day. I've always been a huge sports fan, always. And at first, my biggest influence was Stuart Scott, right? Stuart Scott influenced us all who are sports fans.
Yes.
And even my mom has videos of me. I remember I had at the time, my little Nokia phone. And my ringtone was the Sports Center theme, the dun-dun-dun. So I would do it. And I would enact me. I would see a highlight on the screen. And I would act like I was doing the highlight as if I was Stuart Scott. So I always had this passion. But at that time, I was also a basketball player. So for me, my passion at the time was trying to get to the league like every other, hoop dream person that, that picked up a basketball. And then as you get older, you realize them dudes are really good. It's gonna be hard to it's gonna be hard to make that. So I figured if I wasn't gonna be playing sports, I would be involved in some type of way, writing, talking about it. So I remember went to school for journalism, started writing, and I still write to this day. 3rd-and-3podcast.com. You can check out our articles there. And I got involved in podcasting one day because I was at work listening to the His and Hers podcast. So shout out to Jamel Hill and Michael Smith. And that was the podcast that really got me into podcasting, period. I remember listening and thinking, oh, this is really dope. I love their chemistry. I love how they joke with each other and talk sports, and they can go beyond sports with their conversation. And I was like, I think I can do this. I might not be as good as they are at it, but I think I can do this one day. And I remember me and one of my friends at work, we would literally go all day emailing back and forth, arguing about sports. So I was like, we should do a podcast. Like, we should put this conversation to wax. And we started doing it. He moved on. He had to move and got some better opportunities with the work, but I still had that bug. So for me, at first, the podcast was called Talking Junk. Once he moved on, I had to get a new name. And that's when The Real Deal with Damian Adams was born. And I started reaching out to people and going via social media. And that's how I connected with Courtney and connected with so many other people because of this passion that we all share. And then eventually, The Real Deal with Damian Adams got me connected with Jason Fearman and Nikki Jess, where now I'm doing 2 podcasts. And I've been able to write for several blogs and actually turn into something that is more than just a hobby now, where I'm able to, have it as a job. So it's something that I really enjoy and I love with everything. And like Ben said, it's an addiction, right? It's something that like I just want to find ways to get better at it, find ways to create content in a great way. So shout out to Michael Smith and Jamel Hill for putting that bug inside of me because it never left.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's interesting, like you said, you got the bug, you listen to a show like the His and Hers. Shout out to Michael Smith and Jamel Hill. I do miss them on there and on the, when they did the His and Hers. Yeah. I used to love listening to the His and Hers. Then they turned it into, they had a TV show, with it as well. And Numbers Never Lie at that time too. But yeah, you're right, Damon, how, I like how, your story, how you got started writing and just had the bug and just arguing with your friend and doing those things. I think we all had that type of thing. We had it was at school and you're arguing sports with your friends. I think that's a way that, you get pushed to the things like, oh, let's you guys should be on radio, you should do podcasting or something like that. And now we have platforms that we can actually do it, which I think is amazing, and how you can connect with people too. Mr. Walter Strong, man, tell us your story of how you got into this YouTube live streaming, online coaching, and all that. So the floor is yours, man.
Yeah, I've been doing YouTube now since 2018, so I'm a little 3.5 years old. I'm still a little going through my terrible threes in content creation. Right. I initially started doing, just videos just to encourage men about manhood and finding your passion and purpose in life. But as I started creating more content, as you start speaking about men's issues, sometimes us as real men don't really want to put ourselves out there online and say, hey, look, I'm going through a midlife crisis. Then somebody can read the comments. So when I began to see that I had to pivot and niche down more, I got more interested in as live stream starting to take off. I got more interested in just wanting to help new creators grow on the platform of YouTube because it's the second largest search engine next to Google. And as I began to do that, I began to catch some of the eyes of the established YouTubers, such as Benji Travis from Video Influencer, who's the co-author with Sean Cannell, Dan Courier, and some others. And they began to kind of confirm some things that a relative said to me, that you're good at this. And initially, when he said it to me, I thought he was just blowing smoke, just another family member just trying to stroke me. And okay, should we? You may want to edit that because we want to get that. Just realized that. So for all our fans and our listeners, and we don't want Facebook to hit you wrong. The ego. That's what we mean here.
All good, man.
All good. But then when Benji Travis and Dan Courier and other established YouTubers begin to say the same thing he said, I began to take it more serious, and the Huddle had already been doing interviews with family and friends, and I just began to challenge myself and say, hey, look, I'm going to start interviewing other content creators, whether if you're on YouTube, whether if you're on Facebook, IGTV, and you are a content creator who's trying to grow your brand, your business, and your platform. That we took on the challenge, and in the second part of 2020, we start to see the growth. And into 2021, we saw the growth that this was the direction that we were going to go in. Still a small channel, but we're growing. And I've watched how now I've been fortunate to work with other podcasters who are now getting into the live streaming, because to me, podcasting is just an extension of video podcasting, of live streaming. And so we're just growing. Like I said, going through the terrible threes right now, but we're growing.
No doubt. And like you said, when we did this, me and Ben, we did this with you on your show. We did a podcast 101. That was the first time I met you and everything. And it was so much fun because we was talking about connecting and those things. I think that's a big thing that we've done all together, is that we've shared each other's content. We've been on each other's shows. And everything too. And I think that's the beauty of podcasting, live streaming, content creating, because there's so much people that just, there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of things that people are like, well, why are they doing this? How come I can't do these things and all that? And it's not about that. It's about if you win, we all win. Because if you have like a guest that I've been wanting to get on and you've had them, we want to do that. I'm like, okay, that's great. I mean, that's a win for us. It's a win for everybody. And like, there's enough room and money for us to all grow together,
exactly.
And to be together and to help each other out. Like, you might do something, Damian might do something that he did on his show. And I'm like, man, I thought that was dope that he did that. Like, why didn't I think of this? Or why? But it's more like I'm giving him the props and respect because he works hard at getting that topic or that guest or whatever. I'm like, kudos to him, props to him for doing that. Then I might say, well, if he had somebody like maybe a Joy Taylor or someone like Michael Smith, something like that. It's like then I can try to maybe get them on my show because I see them do it. I think it's great that. It's come to this now. So, like I said, I'm a big fan of you guys. As you guys know, love all the content you guys are bringing out and everything too. So, but let's talk about like guests and let's start there of guests and how you guys book your guests and how you guys and what you guys do for like a format. Damian, I'll start with you here. How do you get your guest on your show? Do you reach out to them by like email or now you go to Instagram and things like that? How do you book your guests and how do you format your show?
So yeah, when I have guests, most times I reach out through Twitter to hit those people up, and I've had former athletes. Well, most of my guests are fellow podcasters because I want to have that different perspective on what I'm trying to talk about that day. So if it's something where, say, something big happened in Cleveland, and I want to reach out to someone who is a podcaster about the Browns or Cavaliers, I want to make sure I get that perspective on that issue. If it's something going on in something that they specialize in, I want to get that person on or those people on to talk about that. My show is more of a solo show. I talk a lot, so I have enough air to fill up the time on my But when I do have guests on, like when I've had you on, Courtney, I always like to make sure that I get the topics out to them prior. So they have time to prepare and come on with their best answers and what they can bring to the show. Because when I have a guest on the show, I'm the point guard. I want them to score.
Right.
So when they come on, I want to make sure that they're prepared in the best way to make sure that they star and that people come away from that show saying, oh, I like that guest you had. Let me go listen to their show. Yeah. That's my main goal when I have a guest on, is to make sure that they shine. Because I have any episode I want to get my takes off and to get all my thoughts out. When I have a guest on, I want you to score. I want you to shine. It's fun. I'll be Eric Snow. You could be Allen Iverson. I want you to score. I want you to get all the buckets.
Good analogy.
Yeah, I'm gonna just play defense and pass you the ball.
No doubt. Like you said, you're the Chris Paul. You just want to say, okay, let me just distribute and everything. Or you said you're Eric Snow, and then your guest is Allen Iverson. I do like that analogy. But you're right. It's all about connecting. And, when you have your guest on, you want them to feel comfortable, have the topics or the conversation. And now you're like, okay, I'm just going to ask you the questions, and then we're just going to go from there. We're just going to vibe like that. So I've always felt that too, and I have guests too. How about you, Ben? How do you contact your guests? Do you contact them like a week in advance, or how do you do it? Do you do it on social media or email or YouTube or something like that?
Yeah, I do all the above. Right now, I think in this stage that I'm in, I'm reaching out to people that I know personally. Any possible way, email, text. In my early days, I guess I would say I was using Twitter a lot. Like if your DMs were open and I wanted to get you on my show, I was reaching out to you. Now, all you had to do was say no or not respond. That's what I tell young podcasters. Like, don't be afraid to reach after that person that you want to have on your show, because you never know. They could say, yeah, sure. They could say maybe not now, but maybe next week, or whatever, how it goes. So I'm not as I don't reach out to people a week in advance. I'm kind of like last minute, whatever I kind of catch. So I reach out to them normally that week. Sometimes they can do it, sometimes they can't. I do kind of give them prepared questions, but I've always been the person, like, it's going to be a conversation. Like, I'm not gonna ask you a question like, what'd you do when you was 9? And I'm not gonna ask you no question that kind of throw you off, but it's going to be conversational. So if this question leads to something different, then I'm gonna go that route. Or if it leads to this way, I'm gonna go that route. So I'm not as planned, I should say, but I am someone that I'm gonna make you look good because I'm gonna present it to you to where it's just like me and you sitting down at a park talking. So that's kind of how I've been.
I like that because you're right. And I think when you have guests, I think they like it when it is conversational, when it's not just the interview. Because if you say, I think these days, if you say interview, they think, oh, what type of interview is this? It's like, no, you're not interviewing for a job. It's going to it's going to be, I want to know about your story, or I want to know about your career, how you got started, or let's just have a conversation. We might talk about the latest topics and sports or culture or society or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm with you, Ben. I do that same thing. I have so many guests. I reach out weeks in advance and to get it set up day by day, or with the dates. And I go by email, I go by Instagram. Like I said, their DMs are open, I'm getting right into their DMs. Like, I'm not sliding their DMs to be in some, because at that time, me and Walter were talking about this a couple of weeks ago on the show. We were talking about people sliding people's DMs, and that's why people don't have their DMs open, because you got creeps that do that.
Right.
You got creepers. No, I want to have you try to get you on the show because I'm interested in your story, or I might just to be a fan of your work. So that's a good point. Walter, I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but let everyone know how you get your guests on your show and your process.
That's a great question. And so when I was first starting out, I was just hitting all family and friends, and basically saying, come on the show. But as I began to take this serious on YouTube and just live streaming, I realized I had to be more structured, especially if I wanted to have someone like Ben on BS3 to come on, because he doesn't know me at first. Mm-hmm. He may know me through an acquaintance that online, but he doesn't know me or my work. And so my process has been, now that I've become more professional and serious about this, is first of all, I have to put out great content. For a guest to come on my show, there has to be great content for them to be able to view and look at. Second of all, I have to have clarity about what my channel is about and who I'm trying to reach. And as a guest, let's use Ben as the example, he needs to see that clarity. The minute he comes on that page, he knows exactly what my YouTube channel is about, what my live streams are about. And then third, there has to be consistency. Not just in uploading or doing or live streaming or podcasting, but consistency in my brand and in my message. I can't be talking about, and from a sports standpoint, I'm talking about the New York Knicks and what Julius Randle has been doing, but then I want to talk about YouTube in the next show. There has to be a consistency in a brand that he as a prospective guest will see. Once he sees that, then the next step is building the online relationship, not just connecting with him on Twitter, not just connecting with him on Facebook, but I'll give you a power tip. Connect with him on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Most content creators underestimate the power of LinkedIn.
Right.
It's your online resume from a business standpoint. And so if you can make those online connections and then finally connecting to their shows, and then you're watching their shows on a regular basis. So as Ben began to see me pop up on late night, come on for about 10, 15 minutes, you go, hey, Walter, how you doing? And he saw that consistency. Now I'm ready to make the invite. He's like, oh, I know this person. This is someone I'm willing to be able to come on their show. And then finally doing a discovery call. I think that is the most underestimated tool that we don't use as content creators, where you can get to know the person either through a StreamYard, through a Zoom, so that you can prep your show. So that way that person knows when we sit down, we're sitting down online, having a living room conversation where the audience benefits from it.
No doubt. And me and you were talking about this before we even aired today. We was talking about that 15, 20-minute window sometimes that you could just start preparing and knowing and talking. But even before that, before you jump on with your guest, you're setting up a Zoom call or something like that, and you're like I said, you're creating that trust and that bond before you get on the show. So now you get to know the guest a little bit more, maybe on a more intimate level. So I think that's another great way to reach out to guests. And you said LinkedIn is a forgotten tool, is a forgotten platform where there's a lot of people that still use LinkedIn. I mean, people use LinkedIn to get for jobs, to try to find jobs and things like that. And now you can even look at people's LinkedIn and see all those what they have, their qualifications and things like that. And you're like, oh, I never even knew this person had a LinkedIn page. Right. Right. So that's a really good point. And I think that's a forgotten point of where you could reach out to guests. I think those are all great points. And guys, if you guys are the ones that are listening and watching, you guys are getting some gems right now on just how to get guests and how to book guests, because you're gonna get those no's. So that's another thing. You're gonna get a no. Some people are just busy. Some people don't even respond back to you or anything like that. And I always tell people that ask me about podcasting, how you get started, things like that. How do you get all these guests? I'm like, you're gonna get your no's, but sometimes you gotta move on, or you can just be persistent and consistent. Keep at them. If you really want them, keep at them. Like I said, don't be a creep. Don't be, a nasty person or anything like that. Just keep at it and keep on them. Like, and they'll see that persistent. They're like, okay, this person really wants me on their show. Let's try to set something up. Let's set up a Zoom call and see how see how we can get it going. So I totally agree with all the points you guys made. Next question would be, what are some of the keys to make a podcast stand out? Walter, I'll start with you first.
Great question. So the key, I believe, whether you can take this principle in the world of YouTube or podcasting, you have to have a niche or a particular audience that you can be able to reach from a standpoint of whether if you're trying to entertain them or educate them. Once you identify that niche or audience, you have to then be able to say, this podcast is going to help address this type of pain point. Because in my earlier days of YouTube, I was doing this out of passion. But what I began to understand, passion doesn't get you viewers. Passion doesn't grow your audience. Passion may get you some attention, but it's not going to grow your podcast or your channel. You have to be able to solve a particular problem. It's the same principle in business. If you take the Girl Scouts do so much business because they solve a problem. Hunger. Right?
Yeah, right.
And people buy from them because they like them, they know them, and they trust them. Yep. So if you are addressing a particular pain point or problem, then you will be able to stand out as a podcaster. Rather, if you're doing it audio, which we'll get into video, but if you're just doing audio only, when I come on your podcast, there is a particular problem or question you are answering for me. But if you can't do that, you're not going to keep my attention, and you won't stand out above the others.
I love that. Damian, what do you think of what can make a podcast, if someone said, what makes your podcast stand out to the audience?
I do apologize if you can hear that phone in the background. My wife left her work phone.
Oh, no problem. Hey, live streaming. This is live. So
right.
Live podcast, it happens. It happens. No doubt.
But just to piggyback off of Walter, man, he's out here preaching. I got to pull out my collection plate.
We'll put the offering plate later for the Real Deal show.
Real show, yes. I love it.
But he made a great point earlier about LinkedIn. That's where I probably got my most famous guest, Regis Prograis, former champion at 140 pounds in boxing, on my podcast from LinkedIn. His manager saw my page. I was like, I see that you do a lot of boxing content, and Regis Prograis is trying to promote his charity. I would love for him to come on your podcast. So yes, LinkedIn is a very powerful tool that sometimes I forget about, even though it's been helpful to me. So that's a great point that you guys made earlier about LinkedIn. But as far as the podcast itself and trying to grow it, Walter's right. You got to have that niche. You got to have something that makes your podcast stand out. Passion is a part of it, because without the passion, you don't have the tools to find out what makes your podcast stand out. So the passion is like the base of the house, basically. And then to get those bricks or that wood is you have to find out what makes your brand special, right? So for me, it's my passion for boxing, my passion for basketball, my passion for football, and the way that I look at things. So my different takes or my different perspectives on those sports is what makes me stand out. And I feel a need for people who don't want to hear about the Dallas Cowboys or Tom Brady or the Antonio Brown drama every time they turn on sports. Yeah. They want to hear something different. So that's the need that I feel is having those people come to my show. And me also, I like that fun. So it's humor with information. So for me, I feel that need of you want to laugh, you want to hear some interesting takes, you want to hear thought-provoking takes. And then I'm also not scared to touch on serious issues. Like Courtney's been on my show. We've talked about some serious issues in sports where it can go beyond sports. And I feel that need for people who want to hear what's going on in sports without being bombarded by the same things over and over again. So you have to find out what makes you different from everybody else, because it is a loaded field in podcasting. Like it seems like everybody has a podcast. So you have to find something that makes your podcast different. So for me, it's the passion I have for boxing, football, and basketball, but the way that I look at those sports and my perspective on things that fills that need for people who are looking for something different in their sports talk.
No doubt. I agree with, I totally agree with all that you said, the passion, just to, find your niche and being different, because there are a lot of podcasts and, there's millions of podcasts, and I know we all have probably our favorites. We probably all listen to different ones and things like that. But like you said, you want to find that space, and that you want to find your niche to be able to be different, or take some things from each other or from other podcasters and content creators, but to have your own twist, own spin, but to have fun with it too. And I think that's what's missing too at a lot of live streaming podcasts. So many things are so serious, which you have that space, but then you want to sometimes want to be like, I want to have this, some fun, or something funny, something light, something this. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I agree with that too. Ben, what do you think of that? And how do you some keys to make a podcast stand out?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Number one is your personality. Your personality is going to help you stand out because you're not like anybody else. So I would say use that to your advantage. Don't try to fit into what everybody else is doing, because everybody else is doing it and everybody else already knows what that is. So use your creativity and your personality, because that is like we've been talking about, there's a niche and there is an avenue for everything. And I tell people, I don't care what you want to talk about. If it's dogs, if it's food, I mean, it's endless. They got ASMR now, which I'm sure some of you guys probably know what that is, where you whispering into a microphone or you doing different things and sounds. I mean, like, it's whatever you think you want to do it. Don't be like, oh, I don't think anybody's going to like that, because I guarantee you somebody's going to like that. So I think your personality, number one. Number two is the visual. Everybody's been on YouTube, and you're going to click on the image. That's probably the most eye-popping. And then you're going to be down this tunnel for hours looking at whatever that was you were looking at. So I think graphics is huge, because if it does not get people's attention, if it's just a black screen, unless you're somebody that's already popular and already made it, but you gotta, that is a huge part of it, because visual is becoming to be everything now. It's not just about what being able to hear you, it's about being able to see what that is. And I've plenty of times I've clicked on something that had a great graphic, and then when I get into it, it wasn't up to the value, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or I didn't really like it. But the point is, I clicked on that thing, and at least when that gets people in the door to hear or see what you're talking about.
No doubt, I totally agree, and that's a great transition too. I'm going to give a couple shout outs to Ashley Baker, content creator. Just had her on the show a couple of days ago on Instagram, so shout out to her. Big fan of her podcast and her work. I mean, she's all over social media doing her thing. So shout out to her.
Speaking of your personality standing out.
Yes, she's a definitely personality. yes, she definitely personality, man. I really enjoy her. Like I said, I just had her on Instagram Live. Shameless plug. Check out the interview I had with her on Instagram Live. So you got to do it, like you said. You got to plug yourself and everything. So also shout out to Terry Rodriguez, who is a big supporter of all of our shows. He's always in the chats. He has his own shows as well and own content. So shout out to everyone that's in the chat room as well. So and Chris Lewis as well. He said, "What's good, y'all?" So thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it and everything too. So, but that's a good transition that Ben was talking about, audio versus video. As we said, audio was like the big thing when it first came to podcasting and broadcasting. We just like to hear it. And there was a lot of audio platforms, from Blog Talk Radio to Anchor at the time and all these other platforms. But now there's video, because now you want to be seen. Now you can add the audio with the video. So you have your Zooms, you have your Skypes, you have your live streams, you have all the StreamYards, Facebook Lives, and Twitter, and you could go on a lot of different platforms now and everything too. So what do you guys think of audio and video, or audio versus video? Ben, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I'll say this, and this is something that I encourage all BS3 Network shows, is that audio is great. Audio has really opened the door into podcasting, but I think people now want to. Somebody told me this. It was like people want to see you as well as hear you, almost more than they want to hear you at this point, because with all of these platforms, people are on Facebook all day long. People are on Twitter all day long. People are on Instagram all day long. And so I think the visual part is I'm not even gonna say it's the next stage. It is now. The video part is now. And so I think that is the now, and that is going to evolve further in the future. But the audio is great. And I think, at this point in technology, all the BS3 Network shows, they do a video, and the audio from that video is the audio podcast. So it's not as if you're doing double work. You're doing the same exact amount of work. You will, you're going to be on camera, but there's people that are extremely successful doing videos from their car. Like, Damian is killing that lane. Like, I stuff. He's in his car, but you seeing Damian, you seeing what's behind him, you seeing what he got in the car in the back, you seeing what's the stuff. Like, visual is popping at this point, because you want to see what's going on. You want to see if a bird flies into his window or something while you're doing it in his car. Like that would that's I think the stage of where podcasting is.
Yeah, and you want to put you hear people's voices, but now you want to put a face to that voice. And the only way you put a face to that voice, unless you just talking with them face to face, is with video. And the way video's been going now, I mean, now people are working from home. I mean, unfortunately, with the pandemic, but now you can really put out content with video, because if you work from home, you can just say all you need is a phone. You can do it, like you said, from your car. Me and Damian and my good friend James, we did an NBA show, and I was in my car because I was doing laundry. I had to go to laundry, man. And I set the thing up. I was like, okay, I got to do the timing. But I did it right from my phone, right in the car. You said Damian's kid, he does a lot of the shows. He's a couple minute video just popping up a topic right from his car. So yeah, video has become, like you said, it's become big, and I think it's needed, because you said you want to put a voice. Yes, audio is always going to be there, because you still have all those platforms of just audio, from Spreaker, and even like Spotify and Google Play, we get your downloads. But you can also transition into the video, I think, which is very important. But Walter, with you, like you said, you do YouTube, and you're live streaming right on YouTube, so you've been basically ahead of the game when it comes to video content. So talk about that, and the impact of what the video content from audio.
Great question, and I think for those who are podcasters who are still in the audio phase, because sometimes from a traditional standpoint, they don't believe in the DH. They just want the pitcher to pitch in the National League. I'll use that analogy. You have to see video as an extension to your brand and your message if you are an audio podcaster, because I'm not a person who listens to a whole lot of audio podcasting, for the exception of Monday through Friday when I'm at work doing something and I have a podcast on. Other than that, I'm not listening to it 5-7 days a week, sitting by my bed. However, I have the video on, and so I'm introduced to BS3 Network. I'm introduced now to him as not just as a podcaster, but his brand and his message. So the video is now exposing him to new audiences. Second, video will also help you to get on more platforms. So traditionally, what it's always been Apple, Spreaker. I think you talked about Blog Talk Radio, but then now you get into video. Now you are exposed to YouTube. You're exposed to Vimeo. You're exposed to Roku. So it gives you more exposure. And then thirdly, with the audio aspect, and someone made this great point on a podcast I was listening this week, that if you are a person on YouTube, your audience in America is primarily America. But if you go to Dubai, you won't be able to connect with that audience if you're a podcaster on a YouTube in Dubai. But if you got the audio portion, you can now have that funneled over into Dubai, and that audio exposes you to that audience. Is that right, Ben? From what the podcaster was saying?
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. Just to answer that real quick, there is listeners on BS3 Network in India. Like I'm talking 40%. I don't know who they are. I don't know. They're listening. So you're right. The audio gets you around the world. You got to do both, I think, at this point.
And so you have to see it as an extension. You got to take the versus audio verse, and it's a great question. But if you're a person who just constantly in the National League, the pitcher has to pitch in the D. No, this is from a sports standpoint. They came up with the interleague. They wanted the American and the National League because they saw that it would give them a greater audience. Well, if you're a sports podcaster, or if you're a person who's just podcasting on politics and entertainment, you have to see video that same way. They'll give you more platforms. They'll give you more audience.
Definitely, and you're right. And if you're gonna go to like a live stream, and you want that video aspect of it, I really believe, because audio is great. I still love audio too, but you want to be seen, and it just gives you more avenues to brand yourself, to be more out there. So, and like I said, it's very simple. I mean, you can do it on your phone. You don't have to just, people think, well, I don't have a computer, I don't have a laptop. Just get your cell phone out, and we're always on social media. So it just you just go on Facebook Live or Instagram Live, and boom, just start talking. Just start talking. You can, you can talk about anything. Like you say, talk about politics. You can talk about all these other topics, food. They say, talk about your dog. You can talk about your just life in general. And, just all you need is your cell phone, and just get on Instagram Live. And I know the comfortability that comes with it, being comfortable on camera and things like that. But, the more reps you get on there, you will get comfortable. Right. And just being more consistent. Damian, what you think? Because I know you said you do a lot of you do all audio and video as well, video content, like I said, from your car, with your shows and all that. But what do you think of the aspect of audio versus video?
Yeah, I definitely think you need both. Like BS3 and Walter was saying, with audio, you reach worldwide. Like with my podcast, I remember the first time I saw the stats of where people were listening to my podcast, and seeing a listener in China, or I remember one time I saw listeners in Russia, and I was like, how? Like, I don't know.
How did it reach there? Right.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know anybody in Russia, to my knowledge. Like, how is this happening? But audio can get you anywhere. And for me, I use video as a way of showing my personality, to get back to one of Ben's original points. So when you see me in my car, and sometimes it's just like I got something I want to rant about that I saw on the ticker that morning. And it's like, okay, I got my lunch break. Literally, I'm gonna go rant about this right now. I'm gonna rant because I hate the fact that Jake Paul's in boxing. Let me go rant about this right now in my car. So I use video as a way to display who I am, so that when I do promote the audio version of my podcast or podcast, you see it and you're like, okay, that's the guy who did the funny video after the Saints won, where he was dancing before he talked about the Saints game, or that's the guy that was ranting about how sorry the Pelicans are, and you're like, okay, I'll go ahead and check out this podcast because I know who this guy is, so let me check out the audio version now. So I think I've gotten a lot of listeners because of the videos I do, where you see that humor I was talking about, where it shows the range of I can do a serious video where I'm upset about something, but I also can have a funny video where I'm dancing after a Saints win. So it's something that, for me, it's a tool to get people to listen to my podcast and to see who I really am.
Yes, you're right. And I think that's a great point. It gets to see the real person of who you are. Or they, like I said, they want to put a face to that voice. Like you might have this voice that is like, oh, this is a distinctive voice that I really like to listen to. With the audio, let's see, what they are about, who they are, and with the video, you can definitely see that. I think those are really, really good points in everything. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to piggyback off of what everybody said. I was really stagnant on wanting to come to video because I did audio, but I would say, man, stepping out of your comfort zone is going to take you to that next level, and it may not be great first. Do some test runs, but getting out of your comfort zone has done wonders for me, and that's something that I've learned, is that it may be uncomfortable. I mean, but I think those uncomfortable things get you to the next level in your podcast career.
Definitely, and it's one of those things. Like I said, if you just continue, if you have a passion for it, you continue to put those reps in each and every time and consistently. Those, like I said, those like mistakes or those hiccups that you might have had or being uncomfortable, you'll just get better with time. It's just like anything else. You just get better with time, and you're having fun and passion. Like I said, show some humor, and But like I say, if you're gonna do that and you just continue to keep pushing and keep going, I think you'll be fine, and your podcast will be successful, or your live stream show will be successful. Because look, we all watch TV. That's video. So, so transition from podcasting now from that, I think it's great. So it's good to see people really take it serious about video and really take it to the next level. So yeah, video podcasting is definitely growing, and it's definitely growing. So another topic I want to talk about is the social media aspect and its influence on podcasting. We all have social media. We all, share content. We're all doing those things with our shows and just our personal lives and things like that. Damian, I'll start with you on this one first. Social media and influence on podcasting. What do you think of that and the social media? Where has it grown from, even just from a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it's going to continue to grow. I don't see any way of it stopping. You have to use social media to your advantage. And if you're in the sports podcast realm, you have to remember that you're using it to your advantage to promote your podcast, and you can't take criticism personally, right? So it's sometimes where you might have a take that people disagree with, where you're going to get all the negative reviews or negative just comments. You got to remember, those people watch the video, or those people listen to your podcast. Yeah. So it's still a positive, even though they came back with a negative thing to say. As long as they're not saying, or as long as they're enjoying the product, they might disagree with your opinion, but if they're enjoying the product of what you're doing, that's what's key. Everybody's not going to agree with what you're saying, especially if you're having something that's a controversial opinion about something. So you can't let that discourage you. Like I've had times where, especially when I first started, I was like, dang, man, people are coming crazy at me. You're like, oh man, I don't know if I want to do this. But you just have to remember, like, okay, people are going to have their opinions, but as long as they're listening, because you think, especially when you look at the world of sports, people have made a full living, have become very rich on people disagreeing with them. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, those type of guys have made a very good living with people watching them just to disagree. So people disagreeing with you, especially in sports, is not a bad thing at all. So I remember the first time I really felt like, man, people are coming at me crazy. Like one of my, I guess, hot takes is that I think Mike Tyson is overrated. Man, people came at me crazy. like, how could you say that about the great Mike Tyson? And it was like, man, the most, and I realized it was the most viewed video I had at that point, and it had the most interaction because people disagreed. And so for me, if in the sports portion of it, you want to have opinions that differ from the majority, that make you stand out. But it has to be real also, right? Because some people will go in there and they'll try to do that, but you can tell it's not real. And when you can tell it's not real, you're like, oh, they just doing this for attention. You're not going to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But if I come to you and tell you Mike Tyson's overrated, and I come with facts, like who did he beat? When did he do it?
Yeah.
Like, and then you're like, oh, he's making a good point. Like, then you're going to come back to it and it's like, okay, I can see this guy is doing. So don't be different just for the sake of being different, but make sure that you're coming with your own opinions and you don't let the opinion of others discourage you. Like, you get those opinions back to you. And some people, it's social media, so some people are going to be very mean. Like, you can't let that, you can't let that get to you. Some people, you know, are just not in a good mood, not in a good place in their life. So they're going to come at you and say things beyond just disagreeing with you on sports. You can't let that get to you. You got to continue to push forward. Just remember, that person watched your video, that person listened to your podcast and took the time to respond. So that means that you got through to them. So you just got to remember that part of it. But yeah, social media, use it to your advantage and don't let it get you down when the negativity comes.
That's a good point, because I think we've all had some trolls come on to your comments or, you know, or something like that. And, you know, you said you gotta just take it, you know, you're putting yourself out there, so you're going to get people that disagree. I mean, me and Ben, we're the Cowboys Eagles. We played, our teams played, you know, tonight. So, you know, we've had major disagreements on that. I mean, that's NFC East, you know, matchup. So even on social media, you know, you like said, you might talk about something, or like you might say a hot take or whatever, and then, but you're like, okay, I'm putting an opinion out there. Let's see what happens. I remember me and Ben, we did a show. We were doing a show on his show. We did the fantasy football show, and there was this one time there was a lot of trolls.
There was a lot
on there, and they was just jumping on us. They was just talking about it. But I'm like, okay, they're clicking on here to listen. And so they're taking their time to listen, and they were like, "Oh, you guys are giving bad advice, and you know this and that." But it comes with the territory too. It's like, no, we're trying to, you know, we're just doing our best, and this is what we think. This is what we do. But that's what we said. That's social, like David said. That's social media. The social media aspect of it is you're stating your opinion, and people are going to disagree sometimes, and just, you know, just that's what happens. But Ben, what do you think of the influence of social media and podcasting, and you know, how has it affected podcasting?
Yeah. So kind of like we were talking about the video, social media is also an extension of your podcast and of your brand. So, you know, there's the major three, but now there's TikTok. I mean, so if there's, you know, two pieces of advice, you can try to do all of them, which I'm managing that, or you can do one and just dive deep into it, because there's a benefit to all of them. There's a difference between all of them. There's apps where you can share on all of them at the same time. So like podcasting now, before it was, I think for me, it was kind of just a fun thing, and I'll just, you know, post whatever and kind of see what happens. But now it's kind of a strategic thing to where, depending on when you post, or depending on what you post and how you post it. And so you can go as little or as big as you want, but there is definitely an impact there. And people will find you that may not ever listen to your show, may not ever see your show, but they may find you on social media, which gains interest. So it's social media is major now. We already talked about Facebook Live. There's IG Live. There's Twitter. So I mean, like, all of these have live platforms. So again, using that to your advantage, I think Damian said that, and that's going to get you to further audiences too. So even posting clips of your episodes onto social media. So where they may hear it and they say, "Oh, where's the link to this?" Or we're posting video clips of your video show and say, "Oh, this is interesting. Maybe I want to hear the full episode." So, it is. That is an extension of your brand, and I think you have to be involved at some point, or maybe you hire someone to run it for you or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely beneficial.
I wish I had the money to do that.
Yeah. I know, right?
Yeah, I think we all.
I mean, the funny thing is, there's like, speaking of social media, there's jobs where people have social media managers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Ashley Baker, she's a social media manager. At her job that she has now, we were talking about that, like, it's a big influence on your, on your brand, your promotion, your work, your job. Mostly like a lot of companies, they use social media to put out their brand, to put out their, their things that they're doing. And because it's another way to find you too, to locate who you are and where you are too. So we talk about LinkedIn. That's another social media, brand as well. So you gotta use that to your advantage. Like Dame said, you got to use it to your advantage for promotion and for your brand. But Walter, what do you think of social media and its influence on podcasting?
Oh, I totally agree with all the points that have made, but I would also say, if you're going to use social media as a podcaster or as a live streamer or content creator, use the one that's going to get you the most engagement. Certainly been touched on in terms of trying to manage multiple social media pages. That can be challenging, especially if you work a full-time job and you have other things. Let's call it for what it is. But if you can find the one that gets you the most engagement from the aspect that now you pull me over to your podcast, that's audio. That should be the ultimate goal. If not, pull me over to your audio, pull me to your website. Yes. With your podcast on it. And then if you pull me to your website, here's the advantage. Social media is rented space. A website is something you own, which you now have the ability to create an email list and get me as a viewer. And now if you have merchandise, if you now have things that you want me to be exposed to, you don't have me on the rented side, you have me on the owned side. So use social media to get the most engagement to either get me to your audio or to your website.
I love that. Yes, and that's another thing we forget too. Websites. If you have a website, use that, because that's part of social media. Website, email, all these things. Like you talked about LinkedIn, and you said yes, the big three: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I have them on all, and then like you said, it's hard to manage all of them. I don't have a TikTok, but and even like I said, TikTok, and it's hard to manage all those social media platforms. But if you can key in on one, maybe two that you use the most to promote yourself or promote your brand, it definitely will be a big plus for your, So yes, social media, it has its negatives, but it definitely has its positives too along the way. So I totally agree with all those points.
Can I make another quick point?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And in terms of social media, the reason why I'm more pro website, especially now in 2022, because a social media page can then go down, whether it be Facebook, whether it be YouTube, it will go down for whatever technical reasons, and now you need to do a show, but the platform is down.
Yeah, right.
But now if you have a website, you now have the ability to do your video, and then you still have your audio on your podcast. But again, the ultimate thing is, do you just want me as a casual listener, or do you want me as an engaged viewer?
Right.
That you now can capture me. And so, like, you guys just been shifted to Roku. I pretty much consume all your content on Facebook, but because now you're on Roku, and if you have a website, now you have somewhere to direct me. So social media should only really be used from getting you the most engagement to convert me over to somewhere else. This is the reason why Facebook fights us so much, where we share links from Ben. I'm quite sure you experienced when you share a link from YouTube on Facebook, and you're like, wait a minute, how come this is not getting the viewership or likes or the shares that it is, but put a picture of you and your wife on a wedding anniversary, you're going to get everybody in your family and your friends and your anybody. Everybody's commented on the thing. And so YouTube will fight you from pulling people off platform. And so you have to understand, use social media only from the standpoint of getting you the most engagement.
Right. And it's all about that too. Social media is about the engagement. And we were talking about, when you do StreamYard, where you could share your content on so many different platforms. You can share it on Facebook, you can share it on Twitter and wherever else. But that's the influence you have, like using the video aspect of it. And now you can take the video and the audio and just share it on all multiple platforms. So yes, this is all great points. Use it to your advantage, what you can, because you will, like I said, you will start getting that traction of people watching it from different platforms as well. So I only got a couple more for you guys. I've been loving this conversation. Really enjoy this engagement, and those that are listening, you guys are getting. This is like free content. You guys are getting from some of the best in the podcast game. So like I said, I really appreciate it. So,
we are passing the collection plate. We also passing the love offering.
But if you want to, pay some money, though. Love is great. We love it.
We got to get the building fund.
Got to get there. Pass that plate. So let's talk about sports betting, which has been a huge transition. I mean, people are getting paid for sports betting and podcasting. Like I've had a lot of sports bettors, professional sports bettors on my show, and you guys have probably talked to a lot of sports. I know we've done, some of us play fantasy football, fantasy sports in general, but that's become a big major thing in podcasting too. Let's talk about a little bit of that. Damian, I'll start with you. Sports betting and podcasting, and that's influence and how big that's gotten to, where people are getting, like I said, a lot of people are getting like big contracts just to be a sports bettor in the podcasting realm.
Yeah. Now, wherever the money goes is where you got to follow, Sports betting is a huge business. And if you're someone like me, who my expertise, quote unquote, is sports, it's, it would behoove me to go ahead and partake and give my opinion on bets and sporting. And for me, I was hesitant to do that because I don't enjoy watching games from a betting perspective, right? I remember the first time I put some money on the game. It became legal out here in Arizona, maybe like a year and a half now. And I remember I was watching the Pelicans game. The Pelicans were favored over the Spurs, I want to say by 5.5. So watching the game, and Pelicans are winning, but it's like they going back and forth between being up 4 and 6. And I can't even enjoy the fact that they're winning. I'm stressing over the fact that they're not up by 8 points instead of the 4 and 6. So for me, I'm not a huge person of enjoying it, but I can look at a spread and say, I believe this team's going to win by this much because of this, this, and this. And that's just adds a different segment now to my podcast. It's something that it gives you so many things, as far as if you want to personally make money from it because you believe your knowledge is that good, you can do it. But you also can do it as, for me, I like to do more mock bets, and it's an avenue where maybe I can get a sponsorship from a FanDuel or MGM Grand or any of those betting platforms because I'm able to do it in this way. So it's something that I want to dive more into. And for me, I just have to find a way to show my expertise in it. Like, for example, boxing is probably where I'm been more successful. Like I've made a lot of money in boxing, but I probably lost it all on football. But for boxing, I can point to certain fights and say, I picked this upset and made this much off of it. You should listen to my podcast for more expert tips on this so you can make money too. So for me, it's a way to get more engagement, get more listeners to my podcast, because people want to, especially sports fans, want to make money off of it. And they can make money off of it by listening to you, especially if they're not, say they're a boxing fan, but they're not the biggest boxing fan, but they want to get into it and start betting on it. Like, okay, Damian knows his boxing. Let me check him out. Maybe he can win me some money. So for me, sports betting, I'm not the biggest bettor, but it's a way for me to get more engagement and get more viewers and listeners to listen to my show because they might find a way to make money themselves.
Right. And now you see sports gambling and betting almost everywhere. I mean, you see in, casinos, you see it. I mean, they got the show Daily Wagers on ESPN, which I'm, if you guys know, I love sports betting and everything. I'm big on it. DraftKings, I bet on just about anything, UFC, golf, but they have shows for that. I started golf 2 years ago through the pandemic. I'm like, okay, I'm itching. I need something to kind of bet on, but there was no sports. Golf was the only thing. Golf and UFC was the only thing. So I jumped into that. I haven't won much in golf and UFC, but they continue to take my money. but I'm good. But I'm big on NFL, of course. We do fantasy drafts. We was in a couple of leagues and things like that. But sports betting has, like I said, it has grown so much. And there's so much content in the podcasting where it's like everybody has like just like the DFS. They have the DraftKings, the FanDuel. They have those pages. They have those sites. They have all these things where you could just get so much content in sports betting. And like I said, there's so much people are making so much money on it. So yeah, this definitely has grown. But Walter, what do you think of sports betting and podcasting?
I think it provides an opportunity for a sports podcaster.
Right.
However, the biggest caution I would say to it is that you have to know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe polling your audience before you bring that segment on, polling your audience to say, okay, is this something you would want us to bring on the show that will have you actively involved in the show more? Because if you do your research on it and you look at your analytics, which is key, and if you find within your analytics that your audience will not respond to that, then that may not be something for you to pursue in bringing on your podcast show. It's the equivalent to me in YouTube when you have brand deals and sponsorships, and now Logitech wants me to be able to, since they see me do a lot of live streams, they want me to do a video or a live show on their latest webcam C922, how they have upgraded and improved it. Well, if my audience doesn't see the value in that, then why take that brand deal?
Right.
Why take it? But if you see the value in it and your audience sees in it, then you move forward. And that would be the only caution to it, because again, it goes back to not about how much passion you have about your show, but what problem you're solving. Because sports podcasting is a form of entertainment. I've had a stressful day. I'm so glad Trump is not in office anymore. I don't need to listen about January 6th. So maybe I want to listen to BS3 Radio and Ben, Courtney, and Damian. I need some entertainment. But now if you're introducing me as a hardcore viewer about sports betting, which I personally don't bet, because I grew up watching my grandmother playing the numbers, playing the lottery, doing the lottery before it became legal. Right. So I know all about that before people started making Mega Millions and stuff, and grandma would hit the number and she would say, hey, look, we're going out to eat because I've hit the number. So I know all about that stuff. Yes. So as a hardcore viewer of BS3, he has to do his research to make sure that me and the rest of the audience is willing to buy into that. That would be my only caveat to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point, because, there's with the sports betting, so many numbers, lines, and, line movement and all these things, the over-unders. And I mean, I could get all into that because I'm all in. And like you said, you put your right, Walter. It's like, do your research with it first, the analytics and all those things before you jump in, because it's a lot of people make a lot of money on it, but you got to know what you're getting into, because it's so numbers driven, and that because you could tell if someone is talking about sports betting and numbers, things like that. You could be like, wait, they don't know what they're talking about. Like they're just doing it just to do it. So yes, I would say if you're going to get into sports betting with a podcast, to definitely do your research first. And and get advice from others who've been doing it for so many years and things like that. That's where you have a lot of content. You have content on just about anything. People had bet on politics. They bet on the the president. Yeah, they bet on the presidential election. They had a whole thing on the presidential election of like, well, Biden's he's this far ahead. He's going to get this by this time. It's like live betting. So yes, it's a lot. So, but Ben, what do you think of sports betting and its future in podcasting?
Yeah, I think the floodgates are open at this point.
Yes, yeah.
When you're watching the NFL and you see a Caesars commercial, you see JB Smooth on there, which you're not paying JB Smooth Trump change to do that. When you see a commercial with Jamie Foxx on it, like it's wide open at this point. So I think if that is something that you have a passion in, I agree with Walter as well. Gauge your audience, but also I'll say this again, going back to the benefit of video, or you can have a completely different podcast about that. Anchor is completely free, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to have however many podcasts you want, but I've seen a lot of people have success, especially on YouTube, but they have one channel maybe about this. They got another channel about this, and they're having 20, 30,000 subscribers on each one, because the way the algorithm works, it's going to send people to that video that want that video. So that is a suggestion I would maybe have if you are interested in sports betting, but your listeners may not be, or viewers may not be. Start up another thing, and who knows? Like the listeners or viewers may come over, they may not, but that is a huge avenue at this point. I mean, I'm not really that big into sports betting. I do DraftKings sometimes, but when I start having to pull money out of my pocket, that's when I cut it off, because I'm not. I got other stuff to do with my money. So for me personally, but I think it is clearly an avenue, because people are winning money and losing money on it. So I think again, finding your lane, but the door is wide open. So I would say if you're in it, do it. I agree with Walter though. Decide how you want to do it. If you want to start a completely different channel or a podcast about that, I think it's kind of, it is the future. I mean, and the other thing about this is we forget is that it's been going on for years and years. Okay? It's just now being the
legal.
end thing.
It's legal
at this point. Just like we can talk about I'm not going to say the word, but we could talk about a drug that has just became legal, and you see now it's everywhere.
No, it's everywhere, right?
So like it's there. It's just a matter of how you want to get into it. But I think it's a great platform for people to watch and view and everything. Great
avenue, and like I said, there's so many. I mean, if you just type sports betting shows on YouTube, there's, like I said, or just betting in general. Like I said, it's been going on for so long. It's been going on for a long, long time. Like, I've been playing fantasy. I played fantasy sports, I think, since 99 or 2000. So I jumped on there way back then. But now, like I said, things are starting to get legal. I just saw New York they just legalized live sports betting now, where you could go to the casino and do live sports betting and sports books now. So I know that those floodgates was wide open. I bet you in New York this morning, 9 a.m. They were talking about that. So so it's a great way. Like I said, there's a lot of good content creators that are in that space. I mean, I can list the names: Liv Moves, Kelly in Vegas, Minty Betts. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's so many names on there. So yeah, I think it's a good way for other people they're good at it and they can talk about it. It's a great way to make a living off of it too, and they're really good at it. You say you lose money, you win money, you lose money. That's the nature of gambling.
I think too, if you're right. I mean, if you win people some money and you were right a couple times, I mean, like that following would grow.
Of course,
for sure. Like I've had,
No, go ahead.
I've had people who have said, "Hey, I started listening to you after you said this about this particular boxing match and won me money. So now you got a fan." Like when Alexander Usyk upset Anthony Joshua, I picked that upset on the show.
Right.
Told people, "Hey, I'm actually putting money on this. I'm bet this upset. People don't know how good this guy is." It came to fruition. Had a good amount of people. Hey, appreciate the tip. you got a fan in me, so it could work out for you. Now it goes both ways. I've been wrong.
Yeah,
right.
I've been wrong too. Oh my goodness,
yeah. So it goes both ways. But when I'm right, I tend to emphasize the right a little bit more than wrong.
Right.
Exactly.
That's true.
But it definitely goes both ways. It can benefit you for sure.
Right, I've been wrong. I've done shows where I would do a UFC or boxing. I'll do like my predictions, and at one point though, I had the whole card wrong of my predictions in UFC. And people will say like, look, you know, we were listening to your show, but I'm like, look, I thought the favorites were going to win. Like they were the favorites. I mean, with the research we do, they just got upset. Like the title fights were wrong. I was just totally wrong. I didn't know Amanda Nunes was going to lose a couple of weeks ago. I mean, she's the greatest fighter of all time. She got upset last
that
time.
Shocked me.
You know what I mean? So
that's probably one of the biggest upsets of all time.
Yeah. Exactly. So I was like, oh yeah, Amanda Nunes, she's gonna win. She's the greatest of all time. But like she has some other things going on. She's married now. She has a child. So she said her mind was somewhere else. But she got upset. So. It's like it happens. Like I mean, you just like saying when you're right, you're right. You're wrong. That's sports betting for you, though. Yeah. Definitely. So, all right, man. I only got two more for you guys before I let you go. Like I said, thank you for the time. So, next question would be: where do you guys see podcasting going? Kind of touched on it a little bit. Where do you guys see podcasting going in the next couple years, 5 years? Walt, I'll start with you first.
I think it's going to continue to grow, especially as this remote business world continues to evolve. It's going to continue to grow from an audio and a video aspect, because again, for me, the benefit of getting back into podcasting, working remotely, is I can just put my phone on and listen to, you know, a podcast show. Maybe I want to listen to Think Media with Sean Cannell and Heather Torres, or Nick Cannon, or like I said, or Ben, one of his shows. So it's definitely going to grow, especially in this remote aspect, but it also has to grow with the video aspect and attach with it. And then finally, you got to have a website. You got to have a website so that way you can then tap into email marketing, being able to get those viewers. So like you talked about sports betting, and you're right and you win, and then you can be able to move them to your website. And then now you have content that you've done. Maybe you take it from an audio and you turn it into a blog, and maybe they want to download that and see that, but you got them now because of your email list.
I like it all. I like all that. I think you're right. Get that website. If you have to get a website, writing is a big point. I think that's a big part of your podcast, because you're writing out your topics too. And now then you're more prepared when you have your topics. Even just put it on your phone. You just have your topics, things like that. I really like I said, your email. It's just more avenues to get your content out there. Ben, what do you think of where podcasting is going in the next few years?
Yeah, I think I agree with Walter. It's going to continue to go video. And I think also TV. I mean, because that is the main reason why we went on to Roku, was because most people have smart TVs at this point. So you got a Roku or a device, or you got an Amazon. It's like 60-40 or 55-45. It's really close together. So to get into people's homes, like YouTube's everywhere. You got YouTube apps. I mean, to get into people's homes, though, they will play that video longer than if they're in a car. Their drive's going to end sooner or later. But if they put on their TV, some people just, I watch TV before I go to sleep or while I'm asleep, and just set it on the timer. But you just think of the TV is going to be on longer than if you're on your phone. Eventually, you're going to turn your phone off. Your TV could be on all night, could be on all day, especially if you're working from home. So I think getting into the smart TV avenue, whatever that may be, I think is the next stage, because a lot of people consume a lot of TV, or they have TV somewhere. So, and that can be done through YouTube, because obviously there's a YouTube app. But that is what I think the next step is, because that'll take your people there, because they're already watching TV as is. So everybody's got at least Netflix or Hulu or whatever. So adding one more app is really not changing their lives at all. So that's why I think the future's going.
That's a good point, and you're right. When you can transition, if you could transition your show to that aspect, to Roku, to Netflix, I mean that's just a different. That's another level. And when you can go to that YouTube TV or anything like that, and you can, like I said, you can stream ESPN Plus. They stream that's streamed on your TV, on your Roku or anything, or your Amazon or Hulu or wherever, Disney Plus, all these different those type of streaming platforms. I think that's where it's going as well. I think that's a great point. Damian, what do you think of podcasting and live streaming coming up in the next couple of years, where it's going?
Yeah, I think it's just going to continue to grow, and it's going to try to pull us in a competitive way. And I hope that podcasters are able to stay in a family-oriented way where we're like, okay, there's enough money, enough opportunity to go around for every podcaster to be successful. Because like Ben said earlier, whatever your thing is, you can do that and be successful in that lane, right? So you don't have to compete with anybody else. Now, there's going to be certain people that were maybe celebrities before that are going to be able to make crazy amounts of money like Joe Rogan did with Spotify or Bill Simmons did with Spotify. So I think those type of deals are going to continue to happen, where the major podcasting platforms want to have a certain podcast exclusive to them. So they're going to be offering out these deals to people, and hopefully it doesn't tear apart the podcasting community. Because I love how podcasters, unlike other professions, all come together and collaborate so much with each other to where it seems like you might have some competitive, everybody has a little bit of competitiveness in them, but you can put it to the side and say, okay, I can work with this person because we're just going to help each other out. Like when I'm on Courtney's show, I'm on Ben's show. If I ever get on Walter's show, it's to help each other out. It's never a competitive thing. And I hope that the more money that comes into it doesn't make it where people are no longer willing to help each other out. So that would be my cause for pause, as far as make sure as we see it continue to grow and the money continue to get bigger and bigger, that there's enough for everybody to eat. That table is full. You don't have to look at the next plate next to you. There's enough food on the table.
That's right.
Put your plate out and get it yourself. You don't have to steal it from anybody else's plate. So I think that's the biggest thing that we have to make sure doesn't happen with podcasting, is that people don't start to think, okay, I got to be cutthroat now, and we got to do these dirty things to each other and not help each other out. Let's continue to podcast in this way and be collaborative and grow together and all be successful. Excuse me.
That's a great point. That's a really good point, because as you said, like the collaboration, I would say podcast family, because we're all in this. And you said the table is big enough. And, you know, I'm a big, and I know everyone here is big advocate for women in sports and women in sports media, where I always say, let's get them on. Let's be advocate for them, because they're in this same live stream content creator. There's so many great live streamers and podcasters and content creators that are women that are just killing it. Like, I mean, I can't even name. So there's so many. I shout them out as much as I can, because I want to see them, you know, get that same avenue that we have too, and stay together and collaborate with them. Because as us as men, as Walter was saying, you know, we're married, we have wives and things like that, and we want the women to grow with us too, and be there with us, and the support that we can give them, because, you know, they work together, so we can do the same thing and work with them, and, you know, give them a platform and stuff too, to be able to grow with us too. So I agree with that. You know, it is cutthroat. There are some cutthroat people out there, and, you know, there's competitiveness. We're all competitive, but at the end of the day, I still believe, like, when we're in together, there's enough space, time, and money that we can all eat at the same time, and really collaborate and be together with this podcasting. So all great points. So all right, my last one, again, like I said, I really enjoyed this. This is for you guys. What do you hope to accomplish personally with your podcast, your network in 2022, and what are some of your future guests you would love to have on the show? Ben, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, and also to piggyback off that last question, I think too is sharing what we know. Like, this is exactly what we're doing right now.
Yes.
We're not holding back. Do not hold back information, because that person that you help, that could really take them from a a place where they don't know what they want to do, to taking them into something that they can have a passion. And so that is one thing that I think, as I agree with Damian's point, don't hold back information. If you know something that, hey, this is a good platform you can use. I've been telling people, use StreamYard, like try it out. Because it is, the things you can do with it is beyond amazing. And so don't hold information to say, well, I know this and you don't know this, so I'm gonna keep it from you, and hopefully you never figure it out. Like share what you know, because that is how a lot of us have gotten this game. We didn't get in this game all of a sudden just finding. Some of us do, you may just find it, but we got in this game because somebody shared us, somebody invited us on a show. So I wanted to piggyback off of what Damian said. Let's continue that going.
That's a real good point.
For BS3 Network and for me personally, is definitely continuing to grow. We're on Roku, so the next step will be to get on Amazon. That's another potential platform. Also, growing BS3 Network to where there's something for everybody. If you don't like podcasting, music videos on there, TV shows on there, movies on there, like building it so that there is something for everybody and becoming a household name. That's the goal.
No doubt. I'm glad to be a part of that growth and seeing that growth of the, going from Spreaker to Roku. I mean, it's a different level, it's a different jump. And I know all the work you put in behind the scenes, just building that brand, I think is tremendous. A tremendous growth. So, Walter, what about you? What do you hope to accomplish personally, and with your podcast, your network, and any guests that you got your eyes on that you would love to have on your show?
Great question. I would say, first of all, from the online coaching aspect, working more with more podcasters who want to go into the video live streaming aspect, where to help them become more comfortable on camera. And the same way they were able to be successful from an audio standpoint and see the downloads, but now to be able to transition and to have the video. So that is definitely something in 2022 that we're working on and building those relationships. And then number two, being able to, by the first quarter, to have our online course called The Power of Collaboration completed, so that way we can release it to other content creators, video influencers, and podcasters to teach them the true practical way of learning how to collaborate with people.
Awesome.
Yes. Love it. Love that. Like you said, you're doing the online coaching. You're finding content creators where they can come to you for advice and to see, to grow their brand. They said they want to collab. They look at how you're doing it. So they're like, well, let me reach out, because I love what he does and what he talks about, what he stands for. And I want to reach out. I'm glad you have that online coaching and online, that online website that you're trying to build and things like that. So much respect on that front as well. Damian, same question to you personally. Would you want how your podcast to grow? What do you hope to accomplish in 2022 and beyond?
Yeah, you're always looking to grow. Like, it's continual growth is my goal. With my individual podcast, The Real Deal with Damian Adams, I want to start doing multiple episodes a week. So at least 2 to 3 episodes per week of the show. I'm trying to introduce a new format where my 3 sports that I love are boxing, NFL, NBA. So I want to do 1 episode of each per week. And maybe like one of those episodes when the NFL season ends, I'll have 1 episode where it's an interview with someone, and I'll have those guests on so I can do my Eric Snow thing and have do the out. So that would be my main goal, is to do more episodes per week of my individual podcast. And for the podcast I do along with Jason and Nikki, the 3rd and 3 podcast, just continue to grow that one. We also have our website, 3rd3podcast.com. So listen to my man Walter. Go ahead and subscribe and leave your email on that on that website right there. We're just churning out articles all the time on there. So go check out 3rd and 3 Podcast. Jason does a great job of doing football previews and doing these different things. Nikki is great at ranting. She's a great ranter. So if you want to see funny
personality, when you're talking about that, there you go.
Yeah, you want to see like funny articles about somebody ranting about something, she does that. Me, I do my articles are mostly boxing, basketball. I just did one about the NBA All-Star game, saying what All-Stars I believe should be in the game on the website. So go check out 3rd&3podcast.com and subscribe to The Real Deal with Damian Adams and the 3rd&3 podcast on all podcast platforms as well.
No doubt. Okay. Yes. I loved everything about that. And, I'll put mine. I think I just, like I said, just want to come out and continue to grow. Just more great guests. Just reaching out to just to anybody, like I said, that I find interesting or I want to know a little bit more about. If you're listening, Joy Taylor, I've been trying to get you on the show. Taylor Rooks, I'm trying to get you on the show. I've been sending out that those invites, so you guys are more than welcome to come on the show. But for real, like I'm just building that, that guest list and really tapping into just building the podcast on a personal level and continue just to let it grow and just to have more and bigger and better guests as well. So that's it. But guys, this has been a great conversation.
Courtney, yes. Can I give you your flowers real quick? One thing I really admire about you, Nithin, is how you guys keep churning out so many great interviews, like just all the time. So I just want to give you your flowers on that. That's one thing that for me, like I like to have guests on, but the fact that you guys continue to have guests on and are prepared to have those guests on and have good interviews at all times is something that I envy. So shout out to you and Nithin on that, man. And let me just put my little out there. Let me put out there in the atmosphere. Bomani Jones, I would love to have you on The Real Deal. Right? Let me just throw that out there while you're throwing out the names that you want to have on. And Michael Smith, I would love to have me and him have interacted on social media a few times, so I would love to have him on as well.
Jay, if you get those guys, they'll definitely, like I said, what we was just talking about, if you get them on, let me know how you got them on, because I will definitely.
For sure.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to say something right quick, and I'm going to give you the secret sauce. And I learned this from Ben, and I learned this from Benji Travis. Ben, you did an interview with a gentleman that had a barbecue restaurant.
Oh yeah.
And I said, out of all the different interviews he does from a sports standpoint, he shifted from and I was engaged because I was making comments and things, but what spoke to me was the relationship. Mm-hmm. If you build the relationship with people and you put out the great content, you're consistent and you have the clarity, the Benji Travises will say yes. Or they'll say no, but at not this time, but next time. So if it's Joe Rogan, if it's Sean Cannell, if it's I dare say even Joy Taylor, man, you get Joy Taylor, man, you break my heart. I look at her and I go, man, I'm happily married for over 20 years. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I digress.
Hopefully your wife not in the same room.
They're not here,
but the problem is this is live.
That's for another podcast, man. For that reason, that's another podcast.
Build the relationship. That would be my parting words to any prospective podcaster, whether sports or just podcasting and everything. Build the relationship, make great content, be consistent, and have clarity about what you're trying to do. And that wish list will turn into a reality.
No doubt. I appreciate that. Yeah, me too. I appreciate those kind words too, Damian. Definitely thank you for that as well. And you said we're in this all together. We're building. We're collaborating. We're bigging up each other as much as we can, and we have so much respect for each other, which I really enjoy. But this is it. This is a wrap for the show. Podcasting 101, the state and future of podcasting on The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. Ben, I'll let you shout out your show, where they can find you. We'll start with you first, Ben.
Yeah. So BS3, BS3 Network, all avenues of social media. BS3network.com. And real quick, to Walter's point, like whatever that name is, like that's what I use on everything. So like I would highly suggest whatever it is, do not have different names for different platforms, because then it's going to be confusing when somebody tries to find you over here and then you're like, oh, well, over here it's this, over here it's this. Try to use one name and then that links you to the website. BS3 Network everywhere. Yeah, great to be on the show. I love talking about this because I was on the other end of this one day trying to watch and figure out how to get into it. Once you get the passion, you're like, okay, I need to watch somebody that knows what they're doing or at least has some understanding. So, my show is Saturday nights. I'm kind of backing away from that a little bit. I don't do as many shows just because running a network, but also I do a show on Monday called The Forecast. That's kind of my new baby, where we review movies. That's always been something I wanted to do. I just never got into it. So me and 3 other guys, we review movies, and we do it in a different way. It's funny. It's not like Cisco and Ebert. We got to talk for about an hour to an hour and a half. We could be going off on tangents, but it's definitely entertaining. On the network today, we got my parents. They actually do a podcast too. I corralled them in. I said, hey, y'all got something I want to talk about. Dude, start this podcast. So they'll be coming on at 3 Central right here on BS3 TV on Roku. But yeah, this is I love coming on Courtney's show. I love all 3 of you guys. You all do a great job because I can just see, like we've been talking about, the consistency. We all have that consistency. And you won't forget people when they do something every single week. Right. Like if you do it every once in a while, people are gonna start forgetting about you. They're gonna be like, "Oh, you still doing that?" So I mean, like that's how you become people's favorite podcaster is consistency. So
no doubt, yes, I totally agree. Damian, shout out your show and where they can find you and find the 3rd and 3 podcast once again as well. Really appreciate you coming on as well.
Oh, thank you for having me on, man. Yeah, so my podcast is called The Real Deal with Damian Adams. We're coming back from our New Year's break this weekend. So go ahead and subscribe now. Put the full thing. Put The Real Deal with Damian Adams, like a pimp named Slickback. Put the full thing. Yeah, when you search it in your favorite podcast platform, go ahead and put the full thing. The 3rd and 3 podcast is available on all podcast platforms as well. But that one also is available live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time on Facebook. So you can catch us live. If you can't catch us at that time, we'll be available on every podcast platform. I do that one along with Jason and Nikki. That one is a football-based podcast. In my podcast, you'll get boxing, basketball, and football. And I have fun, and we have fun doing them. So you will have fun listening and watching as well.
No doubt. Yes. Big fan of the shows, all the shows you got going on as well. And Mr. Walter Strong, close it out, man. Shout out your show and where they can find you as well.
Man, you gave me a monumental task to come behind these 2 guys. Wow. I'll do my best. But, you can find me at Walter Strong the Third. That's 3 eyes on YouTube, where we'll continue to help you broaden your reach, your impact, and income through online video. Now, someone may say, man, that sounds like some other one of those big YouTubers. I would say, well, you know what? You go bank at Citibank, Wells Fargo, Chase, you pick your choice. I'm just another great YouTuber who wants to help you do those things, especially if you're a podcaster who's transitioning over to video. So, and then also we have a huddle every Saturday morning where we talk about YouTube tips and strategies and bring on guests in the content creation to do that. So you can check us out on the channel, like and subscribe and share our channel so that way we can help you broaden your reach, your impact, and income through online video.
No doubt. Everyone follow these guys in the podcast realm. I mean, they're great podcasts, they're great guys too as well. So follow them, subscribe, share, like everything, all their content on all social media platforms. You can follow me at Get the Real Deal on Twitter. You can also find the show. Just type in The Real Deal with Courtney Harding. You can find the show on all social media, all podcast platforms. Like I said, I'm very active on all social media platforms. BS3 Network.com. Also on Roku, BS3 TV, Roku channel. Again, I really appreciate this conversation, guys. I'm big into sports media, sports podcasting, and all that. So I was glad to get you guys' takes and your opinions and everything. And you guys are spitting out so many great facts. And like I said, I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. And best of luck with everything you guys got going on. And you said you got a fan of me always. So I'm definitely going to share and definitely be listening and jumping on your shows whenever you need me. You know I'm always there. So again, I really appreciate it all. Appreciate the conversation as well.
Oh man,
yeah,
thank you so much.
You. Great to
no
be
doubt,
on.
No doubt. Everyone, again, subscribe, like, share, and if you're a podcaster, this is the one. This is the one you want to listen to. So it would be on all, like I said, be on all social media platforms. So thank you guys once again. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of the weekend, and Happy New Year.
All right now.
All right, peace, y'all. God bless.